In the ancient kingdom of Egypt, a grand and formidable civilization, a great sorrow had fallen upon a people once welcomed. 400 years had passed since Joseph had saved the land, and a new Pharaoh had risen, one who knew not Joseph. The children of Israel, once honored guests, were now a vast nation of slaves, toiling under the crushing weight of brutal labor. Their lives were a relentless cycle of bricks and mortar, their cries of anguish rising to a heaven that seemed silent. They were a people with a history of promise, but a present of despair. It was into this world of subjugation that a remarkable man was born, a Hebrew child saved from a watery death and raised in the very heart of the royal court. His name was Moses. Though he lived a life of privilege, he was a man torn between two worlds. He felt the pain of his enslaved brethren, and in a moment of righteous fury, he killed an Egyptian taskmaster. He fled into the desolate wilderness of Midian, trading the gilded halls of power for the rugged life of a shepherd. It was here, in his solitude, that the stage was set for the beginning of an epic quest. One day, while leading his flock to Mount Horeb, the mountain of God, Moses beheld a sight that defied all natural laws. A bush was burning, but it was not consumed by the flames. He drew near, filled with awe and curiosity. Then, from the very center of the fire, a voice, filled with divine power and authority, called to him, "Moses, Moses." With his heart pounding, Moses replied, "Here I am." The voice commanded him to take off his sandals, for the ground he stood upon was holy. It was the voice of the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. God revealed his profound grief over the suffering of his people and declared his plan. "I have indeed seen the affliction of my people who are in Egypt and have heard their cry because of their taskmasters. I know their sufferings, and I have come down to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians and to bring them up out of that land to a good and spacious land, a land flowing with milk and honey." And then came the moment that changed everything. "Come now, therefore, and I will send you to Pharaoh that you may bring my people, the children of Israel, out of Egypt." Moses, a man of humble spirit and faltering speech, was overwhelmed. He was a shepherd, a fugitive. How could he, a simple man, stand before the most powerful ruler on earth? "Who am I that I should go to Pharaoh?" he stammered. But God was firm. He promised his presence and his power. To strengthen Moses' faith, God turned Moses' staff into a snake and back into a staff, and made his hand leprous and then whole again. Moses' fear was great, but God's purpose was greater. He would not be alone. His brother Aaron would be his voice. And so, with a divinely appointed mission and a simple wooden staff, Moses returned to Egypt to begin the most extraordinary quest in human history. Moses and Aaron went before Pharaoh, a man whose pride was as immense as the pyramids he commanded. They spoke the words given to them by the Lord. "Thus says the Lord, the God of Israel, let my people go, that they may hold a feast to me in the wilderness." Pharaoh's response was one of arrogant defiance. "Who is the Lord, that I should obey his voice to let Israel go? I do not know the Lord, and I will not let Israel go." His heart was hardened, and his will was set against the will of God. As a sign of his contempt, he increased the burden of the Israelites, forcing them to make bricks without straw. The Israelites, in their despair, turned their anger upon Moses and Aaron, their hope a fragile thing against Pharaoh's overwhelming power. The stage was set for a series of plagues, each more devastating than the last. A direct confrontation between the power of God and the false gods of Egypt. First, the water of the Nile, the very lifeblood of Egypt, was turned to blood, bringing death and a stench of decay. Pharaoh's magicians could replicate the sign, but not reverse it. Pharaoh's heart remained hard. Then came the frogs, swarming every corner of the land, followed by gnats and flies that plagued every house and person. Yet Pharaoh would not yield. The plagues escalated in terror and specificity. A grievous murrain killed all the livestock of the Egyptians, while the animals of the Israelites were left unharmed. Then came painful boils upon every person and beast. The magicians of Egypt could not even stand before Moses, yet Pharaoh's stubborn heart would not break. Hail mixed with fire rained down upon the land, destroying crops and flattening trees. The land of Goshen, where the Israelites lived, was untouched. Locusts followed, devouring every green thing that the hail had left. A thick, palpable darkness, so heavy it could be felt, descended upon Egypt for 3 days, while the Israelites had light in their dwellings. With each plague, Pharaoh would promise to let the people go, only to harden his heart as soon as the plague was lifted. The final and most terrifying plague was yet to come. It was a judgment so severe that it would break Pharaoh's will, if only for a moment. God commanded Moses to prepare the Israelites for their final departure. They were to kill a lamb, and with its blood mark the 2 doorposts and the lintel of their houses. At midnight, God would pass through the land of Egypt, and every firstborn son of Egypt, from the son of Pharaoh on his throne to the firstborn of the lowest slave, would die. But wherever the blood was seen, the angel of death would pass over that house. That night, a great wail arose in Egypt. In every house, from the grandest palace to the humblest dwelling, there was one who had died. The silence of the night was shattered by the cries of a nation in mourning. In his grief and terror, Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron. "Rise up, go out from among my people, both you and the children of Israel. Go, serve the Lord, as you have said. Take your flocks and your herds, and be gone." He pleaded with them to leave. The long, dark night of slavery had finally ended. Under the cover of night, a vast multitude of Israelites, more than 600,000 men, plus women, children, and a great mixed company, began their journey. They left with their dough unleavened, their belongings on their backs, and the wealth of Egypt, gold, silver, and clothing, given to them by their terrified former masters. The great Exodus had begun. A pillar of cloud by day and a pillar of fire by night guided their way, the visible presence of God leading them toward the promised land. Their path, however, was not one of easy freedom. Pharaoh, in his pride and foolishness, had a change of heart. "Why have we done this, that we have let Israel go from serving us?" he lamented. He gathered his army, 600 of his best chariots, and all the other chariots of Egypt, and pursued the fleeing Israelites. The Israelites looked back, and their hearts sank. They were trapped. Before them was the vast, impassable Red Sea. Behind them, the mighty army of Egypt, with its thunderous chariots, was closing in. Panic and despair erupted in their ranks. "It would have been better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in the wilderness," they cried to Moses. Moses, however, stood firm. His own heart may have trembled, but his faith did not waver. "Do not be afraid," he commanded the people. "Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will accomplish for you today. The Egyptians whom you see today, you shall see again no more forever. The Lord will fight for you, and you have only to be silent." With these words of incredible courage, he raised his staff toward the sea, as commanded by the Lord. Then came the moment that would be forever etched in the annals of history. With Moses' staff held high, a strong east wind began to blow, dividing the waters. The sea parted, forming a dry path, with walls of water standing like colossal, glistening monuments on their right and left. The Israelites, their hearts filled with a mix of awe and terror, began their journey across the seabed. For hours they walked, 1,000,000 souls walking on ground that was once the domain of fish and coral. As they reached the other side, the Egyptian army, blinded by their rage, entered the same path. Pharaoh's chariots, once symbols of his power, now became instruments of his downfall as their wheels sank into the wet seabed. The Lord fought for Israel, throwing the Egyptian army into confusion. And then, as the last of the Israelites stepped onto the dry land of freedom, the Lord commanded Moses once more. Moses raised his staff, and the walls of water, those monumental pillars of salvation, collapsed. The sea rushed back with a deafening roar, swallowing the chariots, the horses, and the entire army of Pharaoh. Not a single one of them was left. The Israelites, standing on the shore, saw the bodies of their oppressors being washed up by the waves. Their terror turned to overwhelming gratitude and joy. They had been delivered. The great Exodus was more than a mere escape. It was a profound declaration of God's power and a testament to the courage of a single man chosen for an epic quest. It was the birth of a nation, forged not in battle, but in the crucible of faith. The sea had parted not just to save a people, but to open a path to a future where they would, at last, be free to walk with their God.